Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
November 17, 2020, the J We Hardly Knew Ye edition. First up, a very troubling story from the Financial Times, which was Google had laid out in a company memorandum a plan to attack EU Commissioner Thierry Breton. However, in a virtual meeting, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, Google's parent, apologized. And he said that Google is a very large company and he knew nothing about it. He had not sanctioned it. Nevertheless, it was obviously going to be Google's response to the French moves towards stopping the anti-competitive impulses of Google. So clearly Google and, at least Google plans to vigorously oppose not only legislation but enforcement actions. And when you have memorandums laid out as to how the personal attacks against the legislative leaders are planned, you know that it's a pretty serious matter. Whether or not Pichai knew about it or not, he obviously set the tone which allowed it to happen. So, and next up, our lead story, SEC Chairman Jay Clayton is to leave the SEC at the end of 2020, although, you know, cynically you might say it's yet another rat scurrying the ship. I suppose it's close enough to the inauguration that ship's already pretty much underwater, so not very far for Clayton to go. His tenure at the SEC has certainly been mixed. He attempted to eviscerate the whistleblower program, and he got severely spanked for that by the whistleblower bar and corporate compliance officers, and indeed corporations who understand why whistleblowers are so needed. He did attempt to make it easier for companies to hide financial statements when they go public from IPO status. So that obviously was not investor friendly. And indeed, his entire tenure was not investor friendly. So, Jay, we hardly knew ye. He had a political attempt to move over to head up the Southern District of New York, although never having been a practicing trial lawyer. It was a very furtive move on your part, and you received just criticism for it. Next up, we have an interesting article from the New York Times about a possible Joe Biden China policy. And it was a really interesting article because it said that sanctions should be used in a much more strategic manner and not the tit for tat that Trump has utilized with no strategic plan. So once again, you see when the adults in the room come together, something actually gets planned out, unlike the Trump administration. It's going to be interesting to see. And unfortunately, Harvard is now caught up in the admissions bribery scandal as the former fencing coach is charged with receiving or conspiring to receive more than $1.5 million to secure spots at Harvard for his 2 sons as fencing recruits. The Peter Brand, the longtime coach, has yet to appear in court to make a plea, but obviously not a very good look for Harvard and the admissions bribery scandal. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.